Both Howard and Peggy would sit in silence as they made their way through the watery depths within the bathysphere, both of them trying to come to grips with the man they had seen, the mysterious man with the metal arm. It was actually Bucky. Bucky Buchanan Barnes. But there's no way, Howard thought to himself. How could Bucky still be alive? Steve said so himself. He fell from the train. There's no way he could have survived that fall, but he did, Peggy said. He survived. And somehow, he's returned. But the real important question is, who found him? It's obvious. It has to be Hydra. Maybe Ryan, something along those lines. But why would he find him of all people? I mean, it couldn't just be a coincidence. This goes much deeper than we thought. What are the odds that Bucky would still be alive? And more so, that he too would be in Rapture? The way he looked at us, it's like he didn't even recognize us. Like he was in some sort of trance. Whatever the case, he's got his own reasons for being here. A lot separate from us. Looking from where we're heading, maybe it might be for the best if we just try to go straight up to the surface. Howard, Peggy, this is starting to get far beyond our pay grade. Dead friends coming back to life, Hydra agents faking their deaths right under our very noses. Who knows just how far and deep this hole really goes? We've pushed our luck long enough, and we've already wasted 2 days' time. For now, the two sat in the bathysphere as they eventually arrived to another location in Rapture. As the bathysphere would come up, there would be a few foot soldiers of Atlas waiting, their guns at the ready. However, they had been given word from Atlas himself to make sure that the two were not harmed and that they were brought to his office. All of them were dressed similar to that of fishermen or seaboarders, all of them in fisherman gear and things of that nature, some with fish hooks for hands, some with guns and other melee weapons. They stood in salute as the two of them would exit out. "You're the two cohorts of Mr. Atlas. We've been said to escort you straight to him immediately. You can trust us." Walking through the corridors of the great halls of Rapture, fighting against a few thuggish splicers that came their way, they eventually would find the stronghold for Atlas and his crew. They saw some men who were lying wounded, others being tended to, some trying to get their last hit in of Adam and Eve to use whatever plasmid power they had left in them. Some were cleaning and getting their weapons upgraded as best they could. They made their way through the various halls until eventually they found an office that had been used as the stronghold for Atlas and his resistance force. They could hear the silent weepings of a man who sounded as though he had lost everything. As the door would be knocked on, Atlas would call to attention who was on the other side, his lieutenant stating that they had brought the true guest. Both Peggy and Howard would step through the door. They watched as the man dressed in average overalls and with a collared shirt turned back to them. They could see the wellness in his eyes. He had truly been shedding mournful tears. "Hi, thank you for your help. Pleased to make your acquaintance. I would say welcome to our humble abode, but there isn't much welcoming around these parts." "It's all right. I guess there's no point in hiding anything. You can call me Peggy, and Howard Stark as I live and breathe." You know, Mr. Stark? Even Howard was a bit puzzled at this. Well, everyone's heard of your famed exploits, Mr. Stark. You're quite the talk amongst Americans, especially those that come from New York. Well, that's understandable. But I hear that you're the one that's really the talk of the town here in Rapture, Howard says. He gave him a firm handshake. Please, have a seat. I can pour you a drink if you like. Howard would accept, and Peggy would as well. Peggy taking a moment to light a cigarette as Atlas sat back on the other side of the desk on his chair, his head reeling in his hands. Peggy started to speak. We saw what happened in the Smuggler's Cove. Your family was in the bathysphere. You were trying to... Yeah. I had told them to stay put. I didn't want them to get involved in this little spat of ours. I tried to keep them out of it for as long as I could. But my wife, Myra, she sure is a fiery lassie if I ever saw one. And my son, he has the heart and the strength of 1,000 men. They wanted to try to help out the cause. They went out against my orders, even when I told them not to. But they got in too deep. They had no way of getting back on their own. They needed help. I tried to get that fellow to help me out, but he ended up crushing the damn radio that I was talking to him through. Although, seeing as how he's been able to get through Rapture this far, it seems like he doesn't need much help. Yes, he's, Howard would try to speak. He's a soldier. And how would you know a thing like that? Given the situation, Peggy would start. There's no point in hiding anything. It's best we lay all of our cards on the table. The man with the metal arm that you spoke of, he goes by the name of Bucky Buchanan Barnes. Barnes was a soldier in the U.S. Army. He served in the battalion with Captain America. The Captain America. Ah, the famed Stars and Stripes boy from the good old U.S. of A. Captain Rogers. I've heard about his stories and his exploits. He's famed all around the world. His sacrifice, it was indeed a noble one. Word is, people have been searching all through the oceans trying to find him. I take it you have as well? The two of them looked solemnly. They had been trying to find him, but it was a lot harder. The ocean was a vast place, and there was no telling where he could have wandered off to. They had little hope that he might even be alive at this point. They just wanted to find the body to try to bring some form of closure. But still, this Bucky of yours, the man with the metal arm, and just why in the devil has he come down here to Rapture? And forgive me for asking, but it's oddly coincidental that you should show up just 3 days after your friend. It was only by chance. We came here because someone survived Rapture. Someone survived, eh? Yes, a woman and a child. They managed to escape Rapture, make it to the surface. They've been living back in the States for over a year now. The name was Eleanor, I believe. McDonough's girl. Well, I'll be in shanty. McDonough actually managed to get his family out, eh? Well, that is truly amazing news. You knew this McDonough? Howard would ask. Know him. He was one of Ryan's right-hand man. One of his stooges. Although I gotta say, I actually do have a lot of respect for good old Billy McDonough. And his bar, Fighting McDonald's. It was a nice establishment in the time. What do you know about this Bill? What's there to know? He was hard-working. You could say that he helped build Rapture from the ground up, or from the seafloors to be more precise. He was a part of the Rapture Council, a few of the elites of Rapture who were all coattailing around Ryan. But in all honesty, they were just a council unto themselves. In the end, he, Sullivan, Tenenbaum, all of them just the same. Everyone in Ryan's back pocket, everyone trying to get in his good graces. But in the end, Ryan ended up stabbing them all in the back, one way or another. Good old Miss Lamb, she's all the way stuck in Persephone, although we steer clear of her and her weird cult-like followers. Lamb? Dr. Sophia Lamb. She was brought in to do psychiatric work to try to understand the mind, Atlas said with air quotes. But in all truth, she's no different. She's just a wolf in sheep's clothing, and yet she calls herself Lamb. Isn't that the irony? In the end, she just wanted people to be on her side. Persephone, a part of Rapture, it was originally a prison, a holding cell for anyone that tried to speak out against Ryan and his regime or his cronies. Funny enough, they end up sending her to the prison, and now she ends up running the damn thing. We've mainly just stayed clear of there. She's hiding out, like a cockroach waiting for the nuke to be dropped. She's gonna come out when all the damage is done. Is she an enemy? Peggy would ask. Well, that's hard to say. I doubt that I'm in her good graces, but she's never outright tried to start a fight with the likes of us. If I had to take a wild gander, she planned on waiting until either Ryan or I ended up destroying each other, and then she'll probably pick the bones of what's left of Rapture. What if we can get a rescue? Howard would say. A rescue? Look, for what it's worth, I'm pretty sure that all of you, when you came to Rapture, this isn't what you had in mind. All I'm saying is, at this point, is there anything here that's still worth fighting for? You're damn right there's something still worth fighting for. I'm not gonna let that bastard Ryan get away with what he's done. As far as I'm concerned, it's eye for an eye. He took my wife, my child. I can't just forgive that. And so what exactly do you plan on doing? It's simple enough. We're gonna get our forces together. We're gonna storm up to Hephaestus, storm up to the heights themselves, where Ryan keeps himself hidden in his office. We'll take out the last of his cronies, and then we'll drag him through the streets. We'll make him see all of the hell he's caused all of us, and then be done with him. And what happens after that? Howard asked. You plan to just stay here in Rapture? The city is already as unstable as it is. You don't have the men or the forces to keep it running. Why not just come back with us? We can help you. You can help us. You know, a man offered us that opportunity once and it didn't work out too well. So explain, why should me and my boys possibly believe in you? Look, I'm not saying you got any reason to, but what I am saying is this. It's a chance for a fresh start. For everything you've lost, let's do away with Ryan and let's be done with it. You can be exonerated. We'll make it as if none of this ever happened. I can't give back what you've lost, but I can't in good faith just leave you all down here. Anyone that wants to stay, fine. But this could be your only chance. You're not like the others. You know, when people come to Rapture, They only came looking out for themselves. They only came looking out for number one. They didn't care how many toes they had to step on, how many souls they had to crush. Rapture only exposed the trueness of man's own heart. You had those like us who came down here believing that we were building something to fight for. But perhaps that's not the case. Maybe you're right, Mr. Stark. Maybe we'd all be better off if we left this hellhole behind. But I want Ryan first. We get Ryan, and we'll follow you. Howard and Peggy would look to one another. Andrew Ryan needed to be brought to justice. This had to stop. And plus, he had the master key card to Rapture itself that could control all the bathyspheres, everything. They had the information. Anyone that was left of Hydra, Zola, any of them that could still be here. They had to stop them once and for all. How long do you plan to wait before you start this raid of yours? Howard asked. We've got everything just about set. We're looking for about 2 days' time, 3 max. Maybe sooner if we can get everything in proper order. Do you have a radio station? Anything down here that I can use to boost the signal? Atlas would show Howard to the workstation. There they had tools, supplies, anything they could get their hands on. Howard was going to make a call to the submarine to postpone the 6-day wait, possibly get an extension. While Howard was fiddling with the radio, Peggy looked out of a window to the ocean depths below, looking at the other buildings of Rapture. They were truly marvelous, to say the least. In spite of all the harm and all the damage that had been caused by them, it was still a marvel in its own right. I can understand the appeal, Peggy said, as Atlas would stand next to her. I mean, this seems like a paradise in and of itself. Well, you know, there was a paradise that once existed on the earth. But then the serpent came along and destroyed the perfect Eden. Ryan is that serpent. We all had the dream. But what would have made you all want to come down here? Miss Peggy, you have to understand. Not everyone on the surface is blessed to be in a fortunate situation. And very few are lucky enough to get out of whatever troubles and pitfalls they're in. A lot of the working class men that came here to Rapture to help build, they came with the pretense that the work would be flowing. Ryan sold us all a dream. For some people, they had debts. For some, they lost their homes and they couldn't go back. Rapture was supposed to be our city, a place where through hard work and determination alone, you could carve out your own niche. And it started like that. But then Ryan, old Ryan, he couldn't accept that things were changing, that people change. He started going back on his word. He started becoming everything he preached not to be. For a man that claims not to be a king or a god, he sure does love to sit on his lofty throne. Rules for thee, but not for me. That was Ryan's game. That's how he's always operated around here. And for so long, we've all been eating away at the crumbs from his table, while he fills his gullet. Now, I won't say that I agree with that Fontaine fella. No, he was a con and a crook. But even so, the man built himself up through Rapture. He built him up through his own determination, through his own sweat, tear, and brow. and Ryan came along and murdered him in cold blood. Murdered? Yes. Fontaine was a smuggler around these parts. Now, smuggling, that was against the rules of Rapture. We weren't opposed to that. But still, when it came to the plasmids, he created that. That was his alone. And yet, when Ryan found that he couldn't break into the plasmid business like Fontaine, because Fontaine hired the likes of that quack Suchon and Tenenbaum, well, conveniently enough, he used the smuggling as an excuse to execute Fontaine and then take over Fontaine Futuristics. And wouldn't you know it, all the cutting-edge plasmids, they all started coming out through Ryan. And not just that, but even an ounce of trying to start your own plasmid business, well, that got snuffed out quickly. Not like there were many of those who were them smart types who could figure out that sort of thing. But even still, for the few that tried, Ryan was very keen to take them out. He'd always trumped them up on some stupid charges, locked them away in Persephone, or worse, the gallows. He built gallows in the square, a square you can't even walk through unless you pay for it. For Ryan, it was all to the applause of one. He started killing his own men too. Ryan, the selfish bastard. But I did this. I brought my family down here. I subjugated them to this life because I thought I was doing the right thing. And now I've got to live with this for the rest of my life. Peggy looked to him solemnly, resting her hand on his. I know what it's like to lose someone that you love. It's hard. I can see it in your eyes. The way that there's just a faint trace of gray, as if you lost a little life in them. Well, it's something you have to take day by day. You're a strong woman, Peggy. I know that any man would be lucky to have a lady like you. It's kind of you to say. But the man I love, I lost him long ago. As the two shared the tender moment, Howard will alert them to the news. He had thankfully given the secret code that was needed to the captain of the sub to extend their time, enough time for them to do their dealings in Rapture and get out of there. And he was having a few extra boats coming along this area as well. Once they were all going to come across the shore, and they would all stand near the lighthouse, they could hopefully find enough bathyspheres, maybe have to make a few trips or so. But they could get Atlas and his people out of Rapture. And from there, they'd move accordingly. With that, Atlas would rally all the troops together. Everyone standing in the halls, looking to Atlas as he stood and looked out before the crowd. It seems fate has finally decided to shine her light upon us. The hour is close at hand. I know that you're tired. Believe me, I've seen it. The blood, the sweat, the tears. Everything we've given in this fight. And you know what? I'm to blame. Because I asked you all to fight on my behalf. No, Atlas, that's not true. You've been with us since the very beginning. Down with Ryan. Long live Atlas. I appreciate the kind words, my brothers and sisters. But now, we bring it all to an end. our good friends here, they're willing to help us out. We have a chance of freedom. Rapture was never our home. We're not meant to slave away here at the bottom of the bloody sea. But we must avenge the fallen. So that is why, in just 3 days, we are going to bring this to an end. We're going to march up Olympus Heights. We will make our way through Hephaestus. And we will march to Ryan's doorstep. We're gonna drag that bastard from his perch. Show him the error of his ways. And we will be the liberation. If we truly want to save Rapture, we set it free. We set Rapture free. Its captives free. Free from the lies. Free from the deceit. We are going to live and reclaim the lives that were taken from us by Andrew Ryan. I have asked a lot of all of you, but I'm asking one more time. Will you give me all you've got? One more time. Down with Ryan, up with Atlas. We'll follow you, Atlas. You have our strength, Atlas. Everything we've got, we'll give it for you, Atlas. You can count on me. Down with Ryan. Down with Ryan. Now, we prepare for the final war of Rapture. We will take back what was lost. We will be the ones. We will bring Rapture down to its bloody knees, and it will never rise again. Now, on to battle! The people in the crowd, those that followed Atlas, would roar and cheer as loudly as their voices could carry them. The final confrontation. The final clash between Ryan and Atlas. For Peggy, as she watched the man give the impassionate speech, she couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia. In an odd way, it was like seeing him. In the meantime, Bucky, along with Masha, made their way through Arcadia. Eventually, they were on to the other side, ready to take the bathysphere that would lead them to Hephaestus and straight to Andrew Ryan. It hadn't been smooth sailing, especially fighting against teleporting splicers and more roaming Big Daddies, those of which had managed to injure him severely as he was tending to his abdomen that had been stabbed by a spinning drill. Thankfully, there were first aid kits and bandages that could help ease the pain, along with some plasmids. Though still, while the pain was subsiding, it was still great. But there was something else. Those two. Why were their faces coming back into his mind? It was all a fog, but he could just vaguely make them out, along with another individual. Some man who he did not know, and yet he felt like he knew him more intimately than anyone else. From Masha, she could see the worry on Bucky's face. She would continue to apply the medicine, continuing to heal him. However, as their bathysphere was preparing to leave Arcadia to make their way to Hephaestus, they were being sent in another direction. They were being brought forth to a place known as Fort Frolic. Yes, Fort Frolic. You could say it was the entertainment district of Rapture, headed by one of their most talented of performers, a revolutionary, the great Sander Cohen. His productions were sung and known all throughout Rapture. And Mr. Cohen was good friends with Mr. Ryan. So to his delight, when he got the call that there was someone in dire need of personal attention, well, how could he turn down such a gift? As the bathysphere pulled into Fort Frolic, they could hear the voice of someone speaking through the intercom. Well, aren't you just the bee's knees? I'm so happy that you've decided to pay me a visit, kind stranger. Oh, don't worry, do step out. Please do. For you are a guest of Sander Cohen's greatest production. I welcome you to the halls of Fort Frolic. Won't you please stay a while? Allow me to wine and dine, and let me give you my greatest performance. This concludes BioShock: Secret Empire. What if the Winter Soldier was in BioShock Part 3? As always, if you enjoyed today's video, then please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit that bell for post notifications so you can stay up to date on everything that is PowerCore Productions and Podcastings that's to come out now and in the future. Stay tuned for tomorrow evening's video as we continue with What If the Winter Soldier Was in BioShock? BioShock: Secret Empire Part 4. But that's going to do it for the end of today's video. I'm Javon Harrington with PowerCore Productions and Podcastings, signing off, and I'll see you next time. You know, I gotta say, that Peggy gal and that Stark fella, they have been a mighty fine helping hand in our hour of need. Truly, I know that we're going to bring down Ryan once and for all. I have to admit, I wasn't overly fond about going back to the surface. After all, Rapture was supposed to be the ultimate score. But you always gotta look for opportunity. I've gone by a lot of names in my life. So what's one more? All I gotta do is just change the voice a little. Yeah. I'm Howard Stark, founder and owner of Stark Industries. Yeah. I like the sound of that. Don't you?